Good morning and welcome back to Late Start Show. We are here today with Mr. Terry Lipford, University School class of 98, middle school teacher, basketball coach, and director of the REACH program. How are you doing today, Mr. Lipford?
I'm doing very well. Thank you guys for having me.
Yeah, of course. Thanks for being on the show. So, Mr. Lifford, before we jump into US and Reach and all the million other things that you do, can you just take us, all the way back where you grew up and what a young Mr. Terry Litford was like?
Sure, Jack. Yeah, so I'm a Clevelander. Born and raised in Cleveland. Grew up on the east side between Cleveland Heights and East Cleveland. Um, Mostly Cleveland Heights. Went to public schools through sixth grade, Roxborough Elementary School, I believe up until sixth grade. And then it was right around my sixth grade year. My family, we moved to East Cleveland, border of Cleveland Heights and East Cleveland. And it was at that point where we decided to look at private school. And came over to sit behind me. He came over in fifth grade. I was here in seventh grade. I had a chance to attend the middle school here at the Shaker Campus School. Graduated in 1998. So I know I come from a family of educators. So my parents have always tried to instill in me and my siblings for opportunities in school, taught us to work hard, to carry ourselves with a level of discipline. And so, was also always big into sports, and we have of athletes, and try to follow in their footsteps and participate in youth sports. Um, those were kind of my interests my interests, throughout my entire life.
And when you think about your family growing up, whether or not it's your siblings, your parents, kind of people around you, what's some of that like home life that really shaped you going forward?
Again, family was very, very important. In my immediate family, I am the oldest of three. I've got a younger brother, younger sister. We were always very, very close. Very, very tight growing up. And again, going back to my parents, my mom and dad, they taught us that there's nothing more important than family. And then out extending, beyond just my immediate family. My father has a big family. He comes from a big family. He has five brothers and three sisters. And so, we were always, getting together, with his family, at holidays. And so, um, again, family was very, very important, and continues to be, to this day. Now, with my own family, I have two daughters, a wife, and I'm certainly trying to pass along to my kids those values that were instilled in me.
Yeah, that's awesome. And let's go back to when university school first got on your radar. And what made you say, like, yeah, let's do this, let's make this change?
Well, again, coming over, in middle school, and like I said, seventh grade, I had to be 11, 12, somewhere in there. So, um, not sure I really had a whole lot of say in the decision. Again, my father was a longtime educator, teacher, administrator, so um, he certainly knew, what would be good, for my brother and I, even my sister, in terms of our education. And I don't know how they found out about university school. And university school being here in Shaker Heights is not far from where we live. So perhaps just, it being, close to our neighborhood and where we grew up, maybe put the school on our radar. But it was a no-brainer, knowing the reputation of the school academically, the resources, the opportunities that are here for students. Uh, the only question was, would we be accepted, and would we have an opportunity to come and once the door was open, there was no question that we were going to walk through it. So Again, mostly a decision that was driven by my parents. Having attended public school in Cleveland Heights for 6 or 7 years, um, I had a lot of friends, a lot of connections, a lot of ties. Like I mentioned, sports and athletics were a big part of my childhood, and I can remember playing on travel teams in Cleveland Heights, and growing up as in elementary and middle school. The only thing that we thought about was being able to play, for your middle school team, for your high school team at Cleveland Heights High School. And so I can't say I necessarily wanted to leave, when I did. But this was an opportunity that we just could not pass up. And it turned out to be a great one, a great fit.
Obviously, as you said, you gotta look back all the way when you were 12. But do you remember your first day at US, like kind of the vibe of the school, the people, the first impression, or even maybe that first year and what you were kind of really thinking?
Like, my first memory at US was obviously football. You start football before the school year begins, and those were my first memories, of the school, of the community. It's coming to practice, and this was my first time playing tackle football with pads, and so I can remember, to this day, coming up during the summer, like I said, before the school year started, and really establishing some friendships, some relationships with other students and players that were on the team, and some coaches as well. Um, and that allowed me to feel like I was a part of the community, feel like it was a place where I belonged, and kind of make that transition easier because I had those connections, through my team, through sports, and that certainly made the start of the academic year a lot easier.
And moving into high school, did you continue football or did basketball kind of take over as the main sport? And then maybe what other extracurriculars did you kind of throw yourself into?
Yeah, athletically, it was all basketball in high school. I want to say I might have dabbled a little bit with track, but really didn't stick with that for too much. So it was pretty much 4 years of basketball, and playing year round. Playing in the fall, obviously in the winter, the spring, the summer. Really kind of focused in on basketball from an athletic standpoint. But then outside of sports, man, I certainly remember our Black student group. I don't. It certainly was not called the Pembroke Society at the time, but I think we certainly had a cultural awareness society, a cultural awareness club. I think it might have been called, but it's a student group for African American students, and was very much involved with that group in high school, and then also did some work with the Reach program. That was my first introduction to the Reach program. Actually, was working with the program as a counselor in high school, and then obviously many years later, the opportunity to come back and serve as a director of the program.
Kind of thinking about what's one memory either from US or any of the extracurriculars that you did that really still sticks with you, whether it's funny or just really just something that sticks out that's iconic.
Wow, iconic. That's a good question. I don't know that I have an iconic memory that jumps out. I thought you guys might have asked me to think back to my years in school. I can't believe it's almost 30 years that I've been out now. So yeah, I mean, I can't think of an iconic moment, but I remember uh, during the school day, when we had study halls or free periods, if we weren't doing work. I remember playing cards, with with my closest friends in between, the locker area, um, and trying to pass the time in whatever way we could. Again, when we didn't have commitments in our classes and homework and project or papers that we had to complete. But yeah, I mean, I would say the relationships that you developed during school, and then that you carried with you, after graduation and into adulthood.
Looking at some of those mentors or coaches, teachers at US that had an impact on you, do you remember any of those that really stick with you and still, you kind of take something from them and use it today?
For sure. Teachers, Terry Kessler, probably my most memorable teacher, favorite teacher that I thought, had the biggest impact on me. I remember having Mr. Kessler in, I think, an AP economics class in high school, and appreciated him because uh, he expected a lot from me, and really from all of his students. Having those high expectations, really appreciated that. And I think I was a good student. I wasn't one of the top students in our class, but I did what I had to do, took care of business. But Mr. Kessler always made you feel like you were one of those top students, regardless of what your perception of was of yourself. He made you feel like you could do anything, as long as you put in the effort, you put in the work. Um, and he expected, that excellence in terms of the work that you produce for him. So I definitely remember Mr. Kessler, Pat Aliazzi, another legendary teacher at university school, someone that when we were in school, if you didn't have Mr. Aliazzi, you were worried that you would have him at some point. But then when you got into class and you worked with him, you realized that he was just trying to get the best out of you, and again teach you how to communicate, teach you how to think critically, uh, teach you how to make an argument and stand on something that you believe in. And um, again, just another great teacher. Gustavo Pla was a foreign language teacher that I remember very well. Great teacher, great mentor. Um, Jim Garrett in terms of teachers, coaches. Um, Jeff Morton was a teacher, coach, administrator at US when I was here as a student. Remember Mr. Morton very fondly. He was, I think, my first high school basketball coach, and then Tom Lombardo, who is still coaching now. I think he's a football coach over at St. A's. Was one of my coaches when I was here. One of my basketball coaches, great coach that I enjoy working with. Um, I could go on and on. I mean, a lot of great teachers that I had a chance to work with at US, and coaches that had a great impact on me when I was in school. And now that I'm a teacher and a coach myself, I've tried to kind of follow in their footsteps, um, and follow the example that they set.
Looking back at high school, obviously, as us being students of you and us being also kind of being coached by you in basketball, we know how good of a basketball player you are. Do you have some of your kind of favorite games or maybe some moments in basketball that like really stick out to you? Maybe like a buzzer beater or something?
Uh, I was very fortunate to play on some successful teams at US in high school. Um, Couple of games that I remember. I remember we played, one game against St. Joe's over at their place. I think both teams were very good. And it was a typical high school game where the stands were packed, and um, highly contested game, back and forth. Uh, and if I remember correctly, I think we were down late in the game. Needed to you know make a shot. I think we may have been down 3 and needed a 3 to tie the game up, and so coach drew some kind of play up, and I think I was able to make a pass to one of my good friends on the team, Ryan Schneider. I think he hit a 3, sent the game into overtime, and I believe that we may have pulled the game out in the overtime, but that's a game that certainly stands out as it was a good win, for us back then. Um, there's also a game that we played against Cleveland Heights High School, which got a lot of press at the time. Back in the late '90s, Cleveland Heights had a really good team and had a really good run, and they were one of those top teams in the city, top teams in the area, in the state. Um, and we went to their place, and like I said, even though we had some good teams in the mid to late '90s that I had a chance to play on, we were still trying to kind of make a name for ourselves, and our school in terms of our basketball program. So it was kind of a David and Goliath type game where we went to Heights, and most people didn't give us much of a chance. I mean, they were really, really good. And honestly, we probably shouldn't have been in the game with them, but it was one of those nights where we played really, really well. I think they might have been missing some guys, and they got into a game, and before they knew it, they were just in a battle that maybe they didn't expect to be in, and we ended up winning that game. And again, a game that I think most people thought, we wouldn't have a chance. And then we were able to win that game. And so that's a game that, I think people still talk about to this day, when US went to Heights and won that game in the '90s. And so that was great. And then also for me going back home to where I grew up, and playing against a lot of people that I knew. Certainly that's a game that, I'll remember for a long time. And then all of our playoff games, the last game that I played in my career, I think we lost to St. Vincent St. Mary, in like the district final, and it was a year where we had a really, really good team, and thought that we might have been able to make a run, but unfortunately ran up against a good team in St. V and weren't able to pull it off. So, we'll always remember that last game. And then as a coach, had a lot of great memories, coaching in high school and now in middle school for the past, 8 or 9 years. And, I've always loved sports and appreciate what they've done for me throughout my life.
That's awesome. What do you think some of those lessons that you kind of learn as a player and now can pass on to your players as a coach? What are some of those lessons that basketball has given you that translate to life?
I mean, just, the importance of hard work, and the benefit of hard work. Uh, when you go after something, and you give maximum effort, you make a commitment to it, and you work toward it diligently every single day. You can reap the rewards of that effort. Um, Certainly, resilience, and how to come back and bounce back and get back up, after you fail. If something, maybe doesn't go the way that you wanted it to, or the way that you would have liked, you got to be able to keep moving. You're not going to win every single game that you play. Even when you do, work hard and do everything that you think you need to do in order to win. You just don't win all the time. You don't succeed all of the time. And so being able to keep pushing, to keep moving forward, even when you run into some obstacles, and like I said, maybe things don't go your way, is a very, very important lesson. The value of teamwork. I think I certainly realize and appreciate that nothing that I've done in my life, nothing I've accomplished in my life, has happened solely because of the things that I've done. But there are a lot of other people that have contributed to my success and allowing me to accomplish the things I've been able to accomplish. And I think leaning into uh, that teamwork, and the importance of working with other people in order to, maximize your potential and realize all of the things you want to realize is another incredibly valuable lesson I think that you learn through sports and through athletics.
After university school, you chose John Carroll. What pulled you there? What were you hoping the college would really give you? And what was your major there?
Sure. So I went to John Carroll because it was local, it was close to home. I did have my uncle went to John Carroll, and I had a good experience there as a student athlete. Um, when I was applying to school, yeah, I wasn't one of those that applied to like 10 different schools. I tried to kind of to keep my focus narrow. There were probably 4 or 5 schools that I was looking at, a couple schools in state, couple schools out of state. Um, Probably my number one school going into the process was Columbia, and I got accepted. Um, I remember going to visit the school for like an accepted student weekend, something like that. Um, and I can remember like sending in my deposit. I mean, I was going to Columbia, so I thought up until that summer after I graduated, and kind of got cold feet. Thought, man, I don't know if I can live in New York. While it was great to be up there for a couple of days and to visit, just didn't know if I wanted to live in New York City for 4 years. And I also had some friends back home that I didn't know that I necessarily wanted to leave, and so I decided to stay close to home and go to Carroll. I also wanted to continue playing basketball, and I had some relationships, knew some people at John Carroll, and thought that I would be able to continue to play over there, and so decided to stay at home. Study business. I always knew when I went to school, I wanted to study business. Math, numbers has always kind of been my thing, and so I think I started out as an accounting major. Didn't necessarily know what I wanted to do with it, but thought that it was a practical major, and something that I certainly could use to get a job when I got out of college. And so we started in accounting. And I want to say after about a year and a half, I switched to finance. Ended up getting my degree in finance, and worked in the corporate world for about 5 years before coming back to US. So um, I enjoyed my time at Carroll. I also went over there maybe thinking that if I started there, maybe I could leave, and transfer and go somewhere else if it wasn't a great fit. But once I got there, I realized that it was, a good school, good place for me. And like I said, I was able to be close to home, but not be at home. And so it turned out to be a pretty good experience.
And how did US come back into your life? I know you mentioned you switched from corporate world into teaching, but what was that journey that brought you back to here as faculty?
It was actually basketball, believe it or not. I think it was 2006. I went to it was during the summer. I went to it. We were having a reunion of that team. I mentioned that Cleveland Heights game. I think that was in '96 that we played Cleveland Heights, and so we were doing kind of a 10-year celebration of that game. And I came back to either to school or it might have been off campus, but there was a get together for that team. And then the coach who was coaching at US in 2006, he was at that gathering. Um, and I mentioned to him, working in business, I got a great job. My schedule's a little bit flexible. If there were a way that I could help out with the team, I'd be glad to come back and help and assist, and work with the guys. And so I came back to coach, and I think it was that 2006, 2007 season. I just assisting the varsity head coach, Chris Oslin, at the time. And after practice one day, as I was leaving, I ran into Bill O'Neill, another great teacher and mentor from my time at US. And Doc O'Neill mentioned that they were looking for a new director of the REACH program because the previous director was moving on. This was the middle of the school year, but REACH kind of picks up in the middle of the school year as you prepare for the summer. So they were looking for somebody to fill this role. And I mentioned to him at the time, I said, Doc, I don't have any experience in education. You know, I never thought that I would be a teacher. Yeah, I might have some teachers in my family, but I don't teach. I don't know anything about teaching. And he said, well, this is more admin. This is more of an administrative position. There'll be other teachers that you'll be responsible for, but this is more just directing the program. You know, he remembered me as a student, thought I was a good kid, and I thought I could be a good mentor, role model for these boys in the REACH program. And he encouraged me to take a look at it. And so I interviewed for the position. Um, Certainly appreciated, US. And like I said, I had an experience working at REACH as a counselor, so I knew the program a little bit. And just the idea of being a mentor and also, a position that might give me a chance to develop some leadership. I'd be responsible for adults. I thought it could be a good stepping stone, regardless of whether I would, be there for a long time or not. And I was offered the position, and things kind of went from there. And so now here we are almost 20 years later, still doing it, and certainly love what I do.
For the people for the people listening who don't know, what is Reach, and also how do you kind of measure impact in a program like Reach? You have kind of a special job being the program director. So what kind of tells you that it's working, whether it's the grades or numbers, and kind of how do you believe in it, and how do you get other people involved with it?
Mhm. Yeah, thank you for asking about it. So, yeah, Reach is a partnership, kind of this public-private partnership between US and the greater Cleveland community that has been in existence now for over 30 years. The program started back in 1992, and it's something that U.S. has been committed to for a very, very long time. And I think a lot of people at the school and that are connected to the school know about the program, but probably quite a few people don't. But it's a great thing that we do. It is a summer academic enrichment program uh, that targets, is designed for African American or African American middle school boys. Students participate in the program for 3 consecutive summers when they're in middle school. They start the summer after 5th grade, and they finish the summer when they're going into the 8th grade. And it's enrichment, so it feels a lot like summer school if you were to ask students that have participated in the program, but it's not that we're trying to, get students that have not performed well and help them get caught up, bring them up to, to grade level in terms of their performance. This is for students that are academically motivated, uh, that are talented, that have performed well in school, and they're looking for an opportunity during the summer that will allow them to continue to take those positive strides in their development as scholars and as gentlemen. So they come to US. They take classes, math, science, English classes. There's some art, music classes. But like I said, it feels a lot like summer school. The boys are in the classroom working with teachers for most of the day, and they are learning concepts that they're going to be introduced to, exposed to when they go back to school in the fall. So when we're working with students that are going into the 6th grade, we're trying to introduce them to some of the topics that they're going to study and they're going to learn about when they get into 6th grade, and they're doing this during the summer so that when they get to school in the fall, they feel very well prepared. Maybe they end up seeing something during the school year that they did a little bit of work with at Reach during the summer. So we're taking talented students and trying to help them continue to, like I said, make those positive strides in their development as students. We also certainly lean into the cultural aspect of the program. By us working with all Black boys, we're trying to encourage them to embrace all of the positive aspects of their identity, and help them, build a level of confidence and pride in who they are as African American young men. We talk a lot and teach them a lot about Black history, and want them to embrace their roots and their legacy and where they have come from, and help us as a community continue to create this positive narrative around Black boys and what Black boys can do in school, how Black boys can lead in their communities. Um, and a lot of people maybe kind of misconstrue what we do as it being kind of this admissions tool and this admissions vehicle for US, where we're trying to, find students that might be good for our school and then have them come to US. And there's a little bit of that, certainly, that happens where families are introduced to US through the REACH program, and then they want to come or they want to look at US as a full-time option. And if that's the case, I mean, we certainly will work with them, to see if this might be a good opportunity for their kids full-time. But that really isn't the intent. It's mostly about outreach. We want to provide this space, like I said, for students to be meaningfully engaged during the summer, and then wherever they go to school in the fall, wherever they return to school, if it's here or somewhere else, we want to try to prepare them to be successful. So, I mean, that's what we're trying to do in terms of how we measure success. Certainly, when the boys are in the program, they have to share the report cards with us, each summer, and we're regularly checking in with them and their parents and their teachers to make sure they're continuing to be successful in the classroom. After the students graduate from the program, going into 8th grade, while we don't have any formal programming for them beyond that, we certainly have some programming that we do with the students when they're in high school, to introduce them to college options and prepare them to take their SAT test and their ACT test. And then we're always, checking in with them, conducting surveys to see, how they performed on those tests, where they matriculated to college, and how they're doing in college. Another big measure of us in terms of the impact of the program is when the students come back. So a lot of our teachers are former students. We also always have kids similar to US, where when students graduate, whether it's spring break, winter break, summer break, they come back and they see their teachers. We always have students coming back to our program and talking about the brotherhood that they were a part of when they were in Reach, and that extends, well beyond their time when they leave. So just knowing that the program is impactful for students while they're in it, as well as for, for years when they finish, is an indicator for us that the program is powerful and impactful.
And not only do you guys have talented students, but a lot of the kids that I've talked to that have been through the REACH program talk a lot about their teachers as being mentors for them. So it's kind of like being the leader of those leaders. What are some of the things you look for in the teachers and the mentors that you think makes them so special for the kids?
Well, I think you said it. I mean, we want them to be mentors. We want them to be role models for the boys. I mean, we work with students for 5 weeks during the summer, so there's only so much ground that we can cover in terms of the academic curriculum, um, of a sixth grader, or that 4 year curriculum for seventh grade. I mean, if we're working with students, trying to help those seventh graders get ready for seventh grade math or whatever, whether it's algebra, whatever, class they're going to be going into when they go back to school in the fall. I mean, we can't cover the 4 year curriculum. So while it is important, what we're doing with them in the classroom in terms of, like I said, giving them exposure to those topics and different things that they're going to study. Um, I think the work that we do to help them develop character and to help them develop, those abilities to be leaders of themselves first, and then leaders of others after that, is just as important, if not more important, for us during the summer. So identifying teachers that will embrace that is very, very important. I mean, obviously, we want teachers that know the discipline, whatever it is that they're teaching, but we also want teachers that care about these boys developing as people and as young men, and are willing to help them intentionally develop those skills and character traits, outside the classroom. So it's also important that we identify teachers that look like our students. So a lot of the teachers that work with us in the program are Black males, young and old. Um, but they certainly don't have to be. But that also is a plus when you can find a teacher that, when these students look at that teacher, they can see themselves, and say, man, I want to follow in that teacher's footsteps. So um, we've been fortunate to have a lot of great teachers in our program, and that's something that we work really, really hard to try to create.
And looking forward a little bit, let's go this legacy piece a little bit. What legacy do you hope to leave, through reach, through teaching, through coaching, through all that you do? What would make it successful for you to look back on and say, like, that you did and you left that legacy?
Um, I guess I'll go back to I think something I mentioned when I was talking about lessons that you kind of learn through sports. Again, I just know that there are a lot of people that have helped me get to where I am today. A lot of people have contributed to me being able to have the success I've had, and to do all of the things that I've done and continue to do. Um, and so I would hope that I could just pass that message along to the young people that I work with, is just to have an appreciation for those that have come before you, that have helped to contribute to where you are today, and help to open doors for you, um, and to kind of own a responsibility to continue uh, to allow doors to be opened up for those that are going to come behind you. Um, I also, from a young age, have been encouraged to uh, be proud of who I am. My identity, the legacy that I come from, both in terms of my family and my last name, but then also, as a Black man, to have a certain pride in Black culture, and my African American heritage. Um, and so hopefully people that have had a chance to work with me um, pick up on that pride that I have in being a successful Black man, and um, you know, any part that I can play in continuing to kind of drive that narrative that as Black people, we're a great people, and we should be a proud people in every space that I occupy. I always want to be able to do my part, like I said, to continue to kind of shape and drive that narrative. So that's why I love the work that we do in the Reach program, because we can, and we do, like I said, talk about that, teach about that a lot with the students that we work with. But then I also think that I have a unique opportunity do that as one of the few African American teachers here at US, and hopefully all of the students, that I've worked with here at university school, that maybe don't necessarily look like me, when they see me, they say, "Man, he's an impressive, he's a strong, he's a professional, he's a sharp African American man," and they will see that our people are pretty special as well.
Mr. Lipford, something we ask every single one of our guests, what is your why? What's the core driving force that gets you up in the morning, keeps you coming back every day, whether or not that's through coaching, through the REACH program, or just through school? What is it that really keeps you going every single day?
Well, I would say two things, Charlie. Family first. Again, man, from as a very young age, man, as long as I can remember, my father has always taught me that there's nothing more important than your family. And certainly my father, my uncles, my grandfather, worked very, very hard to kind of create a name for our family. And certainly I feel a responsibility to kind of continue, that legacy. So my last name, certainly that's my why. I mean, everything that I do is, certainly about making sure that I continue to show respect to my name, my family, and those members of my family that have helped to pave the way for me. And then certainly my two girls, my daughters, they are my why, and me trying to be successful and provide for them. And my wife uh, gets me up every day, and keeps me pushing forward. And then I guess the last thing is just the community piece. And then going back to, I think I've said it a couple of times now. A lot of people have contributed to me being able to be who I am and get to where I am. And I feel a responsibility to play my part now, and continuing to help those that are going to come behind me also have opportunities like the ones that I have had, and being a part of communities like US, um, and playing a part to help keep this community great, make this community a great place, certainly continues to be a why for me and will always be a why for me as long as I'm here.
Well, Mr. Lipford, it's been great having you on the show today. Thank you so much for taking the time to share your insights and experiences with us. To our listeners, thank you so much for tuning in as always, and we'll hope you'll join us next Wednesday for another episode of Late Start Show. Thank you, Mr. Lipford.
Thank you, Jack. Thank you, Charlie.